Well, we had good news in St. Louis, Missouri. They raised the minimum wage recently, went up to $10. Look, I think it should be at $15. It's a good first step though, and in 2018 it was gonna go to $11. So wait a minute, why did I just say it was going to go to 11? Because there's no good news that can last in this country. What do you think, we live in a democracy? So we go to the Huffington Post now, Dave Jamieson writing and explaining. After St. Louis leaders raised the wage floor for workers within city limits, the state GOP recently passed what's known as a statewide preemption law, forbidding localities from taking such matters into their own hands. On Friday, Missouri Governor Eric Greitens said he would let the law go into effect, thereby barring cities and counties from setting a minimum wage higher than the state level. See what they did there? Oh, St. Louis, you want to pay your workers more? Nah, I don't think so. We're preempting your act of decency with an act of gross cruelty. Now, the governor in this case is a Republican and didn't have the guts to actually just sign the law. He let it go into effect without signing it. Why did he do that? Because he knows that people are going to be furious. Now, I'll give you the full context of how devastating this is to the working poor and middle class. Remember, they're working. You don't get the minimum wage if you're a bum and you're not working. So all the propaganda they do against poor people and middle class people, it's nonsense. They work really, really hard. So here's what happened. For low wage earners in St. Louis itself, the new law will have a startling consequence. It will actually push the minimum wage back down from the city approved $10 per hour to the state approved $7.70. The downgrade is slated to take effect on August 28th. Let's talk about how devastating that is. As a percentage of their income, for someone earning the bare minimum, that's a potential cut of 23%. They're giving tax cuts like it's no one's business to the highest income earners in the country. The average person in the top 1%, not from the tax cuts that's coming next, but just from the tax cuts within healthcare reform, those are the smaller tax cuts, are gonna get about, I think, $35,000 per household in the top 1%. They're gonna get an extra $35,000 per household. The numbers get astronomical when you get to the higher brackets. I think that the 400 richest people are gonna get like an extra $7 million a year from the tax cuts just inside healthcare reform, then the larger tax cuts and tax reform comes. But when it comes to the poor and middle class that are working, they're going to cut your wages in St. Louis by a quarter. It's not like you were getting rich off of $10 an hour. You could barely survive on $10 an hour. And then they're gonna cut it by a quarter. And then meanwhile, when they do the tax cuts for the rich, you know what they tell you? Oh, that's not for the rich, that's for you guys, so that it could trickle down on you. How about instead of trickling down on me, you let me keep a $10 minimum wage, which doesn't even pay the bills. It barely allows you to survive. No, don't worry, I'm gonna give it all to the rich, and eventually, maybe it'll trickle down to you, but meanwhile, I'm gonna take your money. And by the way, where does that go? Well, why do you think they're passing the law? Well, because their donors told them to pass the law. What donors? The employers who say, look, I'd rather have my executives make more money. It's not like these businesses aren't profitable. They're almost all incredibly profitable. But no, they have to maximize profit. And in order to maximize profit, who are they gonna take it from? They're gonna take it from you. So look, if we had a decent democracy in this country, we'd have a $15 minimum wage. We might have one that's even higher. And when businesses do well, that's great. We all win. The businesses win, small businesses, big businesses, the workers, etc. But that's not the system we have. We have a system that allows for legalized bribery where you can just go to politicians, give them a campaign donations, and they do whatever the hell you want them to. And what has that led to? Gross income inequality. It's not an accident. This is how it happens. They cut your wages and they give tax cuts to the rich. And then they go, oh golly gee, I think that's the market. That's not the market. That's you buying off politicians and destroying people who are working for a living. And you think it's just in St. Louis? No, no, no. At least 17 states have preemption laws that stand in the way of local minimum wage legislation, according to a recent study by the National League of Cities. They did it in Birmingham too. In Birmingham, the NAACP is now filing a civil rights lawsuit because Birmingham is 73% African American. They raised the minimum wage to $10.10. Again, not a huge number and has not kept up with inflation at all. Has not kept up with the productivity of the American worker at all. You're still not getting anywhere near what you should at $10.10. But Alabama didn't like that Birmingham was getting a higher wage. So the state of Alabama comes in and goes, nah, I'm gonna take that higher minimum wage away, just like they did in Missouri. Look, what can you do about it? You got to get money out of politics. So wolf-pac.com. If you don't do that, they're going to do this to you forever. You got to stand up and fight so that when you actually do work your ass off, you can actually get a decent wage for it and feed your family. Okay, wolf-pac.com. Get money out of politics. Volunteer, help however you can help. The second way is, if you don't have real Democrats, real progressives representing you, the Democrats are gonna get steamrolled every time. So in St. Louis, there's a person running for Congress who says the minimum wage should be way higher. She's a Justice Democrat, her name is Cori Bush. And if you want strong fighters who actually fight for you, she doesn't take any PAC money. If you're a Justice Democrat, you're not allowed to take PAC money, you're not allowed to take corporate money. You only small donors. That way you know that she's representing you and not the donors. So why is she for a higher minimum wage? Because nobody bought her off so that she would be able for a lower minimum wage and pretend that she's actually doing it for you. She doesn't have to pretend to do anything. So go read more about her. Go to votecoribush.com. And if you want to help her with the small donations, votecoribush.com/donate. But look, if you're in Birmingham, do likewise. If you're in any of those 17 areas, do likewise. Don't let them sit there and take money from your family and just let them get away with it. Fight back the way you're supposed to in this system. Fight back through democracy, through politics, regain that power. That is why they are so scared of organizations like Justice Democrats and Our Revolution and all these people that are actually fighting back to get real change. And they're not gonna give it to you if you ask pretty please. You have to take it back. The way you do that is by supporting candidates and groups like this, so we get money out of politics so that they represent voters and not donors. Help us build independent media together. tytnetwork.com/join.